All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining the webinar for Google AdWords updates and Duda responsive landing pages. We're really excited to have you guys here today. This isn't a normal webinar. We actually have a very special guest with us today, and we're going to cover some more advanced Google AdWords topics. This isn't a basic webinar. This is a bit more of an advanced, intermediate to advanced webinar. We're really excited to get into it. So first things first, let's make some introductions. Oh, let me get through here. So if you haven't met me, my name's Cody. I'm the Manager of Education here at Duda. I do pretty much all of our webinars. You've probably heard my voice or seen me before. I also manage a lot of our support portal content, creating tutorials, product videos, things like that. So I'm Cody, and with me live in person is Patrick from Google Marketing Solutions.
Thank you, Cody. Thanks for having me as well. I'm really excited to be speaking with you all today. As Cody said, my name is Patrick Tam. I'm a strategic partner manager at Google's Marketing Solutions team. And I'm also a mobile product expert within the organization as well. So really excited to be talking to you guys today. Excellent,
thank you. And Patrick, I am sorry, I do regret making the decision to eat an onion bagel right before you came in. So you're going to have to just live with that as we go through the webinar today.
I'm all about it.
Excellent. So on the agenda for today, I'm going to talk really briefly about Duda. If you guys aren't familiar with us, I'll tell you a little bit about us. And then Patrick's going to take it over. He's going to talk about expanded text ads and device bid adjustments, some of the newest updates that Google just released. After that, in consideration for those device bid adjustments, and I'm going to talk a little bit about responsive design conversion and how you can get the most out of your mobile website, especially if you're using it as a landing page, your responsive site. And then we'll save some time at the end for Q&A. Now, something I really want to be clear about here, since Patrick is a Google employee, works for Google Marketing Solutions, he doesn't have the SEO algorithm. There's no reason to go into it. He's not going to be able to answer questions about how to get you #1 at Google. That's really not the focus of today's webinar. It's really more about AdWords, paid marketing, and that sort of thing. So if you have some great AdWords questions, Patrick is the man to ask them. He's going to have some fantastic answers for you. But let's not beat him up with SEO questions, please. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. So first, a little bit about Duda. We're a responsive website builder platform, and we really focus on the professional market. We service a lot of web professionals and agencies worldwide. We do still have a direct to SMB segment, but really our focus is on building tools that help web professionals save time and be successful in their agencies. We launched in 2010, and in those last 6 years, we now have over 6 million sites on the platform, which we think is pretty good. A million sites, it's not too shabby as far as growth is concerned. Patrick and I are sitting here in Palo Alto, California, right here in the heart of Silicon Valley, and most of our engineers and all of our R&D is in Tel Aviv, Israel. And you can see some of our partnerships down below. So with that, let's get it over to Patrick to talk about text ads.
All right, thanks, Cody. So a lot of these changes we're going to be talking today are changes we announced earlier this year at the Google Performance Summit. And now that they're out in the wild, we're excited to be talking to you guys and give you guys a bit of an overview as well as some guidance on how to best leverage some of these changes. So the agenda for my session today is going to be giving you an overview of expanded text ads, as well as device bid adjustments, and then lastly, best practices for both. Now let's get into it. First up is expanded text ads. Now, what are expanded text ads exactly? Expanded text ads are a replacement of the standard text ad format, and they're optimized for a mobile-first world. More specifically, a world in which smartphones are becoming ever increasingly larger. 4, 5, 6-inch devices, in some cases 7-inch devices. And we really wanted to empower our advertisers and our users to fully take advantage of that screen real estate. So expanded text ads are designed to maximize your presence on mobile search as well as desktop search. With the new ad format, we're giving you 50% greater ad copy space which allows you to utilize a more prominent headline as well as give you some extra wiggle room to highlight your products and services. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of what entails the new ads. The most prominent change is the addition of the second headline. Now you have a headline space of 60 characters as opposed to the old format, which only gave you a single headline field with 25 characters, which is a massive, massive improvement and allows you to really, really communicate the full value of your products and services on Google. Next is the description line, which now gives you 80 characters in total, as opposed to the old format, which gave you 70 characters total. And lastly, in the URL field, we've really simplified the URL process where we now extract that final URL to determine your display URL, and also giving you what we call path fields to allow you to signify to the user specific landing page experience, whether it be to signify a mobile-specific experience, which is especially important in cases like mobile commerce, so that a user knows that if they want to make a purchase with you, that they'll have a really clean, smooth shopping experience on their mobile device. You can also use it to highlight specific products or locations, as you guys can see in the example, to really communicate the relevance of your ad to the user's search. Overall, a ton of benefits to be extracted from the new expanded text ads. First and foremost, giving you even more control with the addition of that new second headline, as well as more space to really expand upon your creative messaging and make clear to the user the expectations around the landing page experience that they're going to be clicking into. The experience is mobile optimized, as we mentioned earlier, to take advantage of that additional screen real estate, as well as giving you that additional line over existing text ads on mobile. And overall, in early tests and results, we've seen up to a 20% CTR uplift over the existing text ad format. So some phenomenal value to be extracted from these new formats. Now let's get into best practices. Without turning this into copywriting 101, let's talk through some things to consider as you start to venture out and test on your own the new format. First and foremost, make sure you're testing multiple versions of the longer ads, but also do so by building these ads, and we recommend around 3 to 5 on average, building these ads within your existing ad groups alongside your standard ads, which means we recommend that you don't necessarily pause your standard ads right away, at least until you've collected enough performance data to optimize and really understand which messaging is really hitting notes for your users and your customers. Next is take full advantage of the new character limits, especially with the longer headlines. As we mentioned earlier, with the longer headlines, we see not only greater visibility with your ad, but also potentially higher CTRs when you're able to communicate more fully the value of your products and services. Next, when it comes to the creative itself, rethink the entire creative, including messaging that didn't fit before, rather than just simply adding words to your existing text. Next is when it comes to mobile. The format itself is already optimized for mobile, but also make clear if you have a mobile landing page experience to signify this in the URL field so that users know and expect specific experiences. And it's oftentimes a true value proposition to be able to know that you're going to have a really clean mobile experience on your device. Lastly, utilize all relevant ad extensions to maximize your relevance, but also to maximize your ad real estate on the SERP. As you may or may not know, not only are you utilizing additional headline and copywriting space, but with extensions in play, your ad will also take up additional real estate if the extensions are deemed relevant to the search. So that's it for expanded text ads. Now let's get into device bid adjustments. Now before we get into the specifics of the DBAs, we first want to touch on the point that we always, as a first strategy, recommend using the AdWords automated bidding strategies, because those allow you to factor in all of the numerous signals that go into a user's search, including device, as well as other signals like time of day, location, language, device, OS, etc. And it helps make these decisions and balance the weight of all of them to make the optimal bid for you. Now that being said, if you'd like to have more granularity and control, we have the new device bid adjustments. Let's get into those. So what are these exactly? Well, they're individual bid adjustments for each device. The incumbent mobile, but also now splitting up desktop and tablet, which were formerly bundled into a single device bid. The new DBAs are in line with the current mobile bid adjustment structure and is now automatically available in all accounts with desktop and tablet modifiers set to match your default bid. Now we've got some formatting issues here, but the value proposition of this is allowing you more creative control over your relative device performance. It allows you to separate tablet and desktop bidding, answering a long-standing ask from our users. It also improves your bidding flexibility by increasing the bid ceiling to 900%. Now, what are some ideal use cases for DBAs? Well, the first is if you're a user who's already capped at today's max of 300%, the 900% cap is going to be a massive change for you. Next is those who are looking to improve their individual device CPAs. So if you have a poor performer on tablet and you want to manage your CPAs more granularly, then you now have this ability. And lastly, those who want to manage their device bids manually or aren't a good fit for auto bidding, DBAs are a good fit for you. Now let's get into best practices. When it comes to DBAs, you first want to define your aggregate performance target across all devices, meaning what is your CPA or your conversion rate across everything in a bundle. But of course, also make sure that you're fully valuing mobile. What do we mean by that? Make sure that you're considering conversions that fall outside of that last click, whether it be in-store visits, calls, website calls, cross-device conversions, or app activity that may not be factored into your AdWords performance for whatever reason. Next, optimize your keyword level bids to help you reach your aggregate target across all your devices. Lastly, use device bid adjustments to address differences in device-specific performance. So make sure that you're setting device bid adjustments by looking at the individual performance, whether it be CPA, conversion rates, click-through rates, etc., relative to the aggregate performance across all your devices. Digging further into that, let's get into device target CPAs. Now, what are device tCPAs? They're individual target CPA adjustments for each device. So taking the device bid adjustment further and obviously allowing you to hit that CPA target. They're in line with your manual device bid adjustments and automatically available in all accounts. The value proposition is it allows you more control over your relative device performance and allows you to separate your device-specific tCPAs. Now, what are some ideal use cases for this? Well, it's useful for those who value their conversions differently per device. The perfect example would be someone who really values mobile app downloads and does not value desktop conversions quite as much. You can use your target CPA to ramp up your mobile CPA much higher than your desktop. Or less if you have specific device goals. All right. Lastly, Some best practices when it comes to device bid adjustments. As mentioned earlier, consider auto bidding, or use device tCPAs if you have device-specific CPA goals. Second, keep consolidated campaigns. We'll get into why that is in a second. Lastly, if auto bidding is not an option, consider optimizing your aggregate CPA across all devices with manual bidding. Now, things to avoid. Don't decrease bids for your poorly performing devices without also increasing bids for your best performing devices. And lastly, the splitting campaigns piece. As we mentioned, keep your consolidated, keep away from splitting out device-specific campaigns. The reason is there are a number of disadvantages, including the fact that it's time-consuming to replicate these campaigns and manage them across multiple campaigns. It's difficult to manage and maintain parity. You lose that holistic view of your performance across all devices. And because of all these disadvantages and this loss of view across everything, might result in lower performance. So those are all things to consider before you jump into the world of device bid adjustments.
Fantastic. Thank you, Patrick. All right, so that was a fantastic presentation. I know it was pretty advanced. I saw there was a couple comments where a couple people said it was a little over their head, but there's still a lot of great information, so thank you, Patrick. So now, kind of moving along in that same direction, you're thinking about using your site, you're going to be doing some ads with it, and you're going to do some AdWords on it. If you have a site, just having a responsive site alone isn't really a good conversion strategy, especially considering the new emphasis on mobile when it comes to these bid adjustments in AdWords. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why responsive alone isn't quite enough for that, and then I'm going to leave you with some tips. I've got 9 mobile conversion tips to help you get the most out of your campaign pages, your landing pages on mobile, and then we're going to open it up for the Q&A. So first, a lot of people, when they're building a landing page, they might just be using a WordPress site with a responsive template or responsive theme, and they really focus on conversion. They build a great desktop site, and they think it has a responsive theme, so it's fine on mobile. But that doesn't mean it's going to convert well on mobile. You really need to pay some more attention to it. And some of our Duda pros, some of our resellers have found a lot of success using tools like Edit by Device to really create a custom experience by differentiating that CTA on those mobile pages and creating those mobile landing pages out of their normal site. This is part of the responsive site. It just gets you a better conversion when you really pay attention to that. So now I've got an example. This is from Conversioner. There was an agency that had a client that had a mobile page that had a form that was converting at about 0.79% for about 2 years, which isn't really that great, and that's not uncommon to see a conversion rate like that on mobile sites. The main call to action was, of course, a form, and when they investigated this, they found out that the form had 5 whole steps that those visitors had to complete before actually going through and finalizing the purchase, and that's a lot to ask of a mobile visitor. So they went through, and the agency went and optimized the form. They removed unnecessary form fields. They got it down from 5 steps down to 3 steps. They made the call to action more prominent. And then they did some technical fixes. They fixed some browser compatibility issues on mobile. They improved the load time, so it loaded faster on mobile. And that had a big impact as far as conversion rate goes. In fact, after they tested it, after 2 weeks and 100,000 sessions later, conversion jumped up from 0.79% to 4.62%. That's a huge boost. That's 6 times the revenue from the same site just because they paid attention to some basic principles on how to convert this mobile audience. And this is something that's incredibly valuable for you guys as well. So I'd like to get into a few tips. I've got 9 of them for you on how you can convert or help improve your conversion rate on your mobile landing pages. Number 1, think about a mobile visitor's goals. What are they looking for? What are they looking for? Directions, contact info, maybe product comparisons or product details? is that you want to make sure this information is very easy for them to access, and think about what you can do to make finding this information as easy as possible for that visitor. And of course, take any compelling or relevant links and make sure that they're upfront and easy for the visitors to find. Next, make sure to not only think about your visitor's goal, but also to define your goal. What is the most wanted action that you want that visitor to perform on your page? What is it that you want them to do? Do you want them to fill out a contact form? Do you want them to make a purchase, add an item to a cart, go ahead and opt into your mailing list? What is your goal when you get that traffic that you've paid to bring to your page? What is it that you want them to do? And make it very easy and clearly define that action as a call to action that stands out among the rest of your page. And make sure that it logically moves the user through the flow to that action. So they look at the page, they hear about your product, and then they see your call to action. So I think it can be useful to imagine your site and how it looks on mobile on a business card. That's roughly the size of a web browser on an iPhone. Of course, like Patrick mentioned earlier, some devices are getting bigger and bigger, 6, 7 inches. So, okay, roughly a little bit bigger than a business card now, but it's still a pretty good analogy. If you think about it, that's not a lot of room to look at if you can hold that business card out in front of you. Think about all your content has to go there. It needs to be easy to digest and easy to understand. So only keep the most compelling details and graphics up front and center on the mobile version of your site, and never make visitors scroll to find that call to action. And I think a lot of people are guilty of this, collapsing navigation behind what I'm calling the 3-line button. I've heard people call it the hamburger menu, which is just, I think, a terrible name for this button because the ratio is totally different. But if you do this, make sure that your visitors understand. You'd be surprised. Like, I understand, Patrick understands, I think everyone in this webinar understands what this button is, but not all of your customers are going to understand this. And that's something you got to keep in mind. You might still be confusing traffic that you've paid to get to your landing page might still be confused when they see this. So make it easy for them to understand. Consider adding something like the word menu next to it to make that design easy so that the user doesn't get confused and they can find the navigation that they need to find to browse your site or browse your landing page. And anything that's important, make sure you highlight it. Highlight important navigation or links so that the user can quickly find your services or contact us or whatever it is that they're looking for on your page. Speaking of highlighting things, make everything that's clickable on your landing page a button, especially on the responsive mobile version of it. Not just your basic text links. Everything should be easy to tap. Make it big, thumb-friendly, and add white space around it to emphasize it, make it stand out from the page. You want any link that you're sending traffic through on your landing page. It's probably part of your CTA. You want to emphasize this. You want to make it easy and fun to click. Now this is something new, and this is something you got to think about, is giving users an out. Sometimes a user is going to get stuck. You paid to bring them to your mobile landing page. They're not seeing exactly what they thought they'd see. If anything goes wrong, what's that user going to do? They're going to hit the back button. They're just going to leave. Rather than have that happen, it would be better for them to see a phone number or a click to call where they can call to get help. You'd much rather have them do that than just bounce and leave your site. So give them the option to do this. Go ahead and put a phone number in the header, add a click to call button where they can call your customer service or they can call to place an order if they'd rather do that than fill out a form on your mobile landing page. In fact, I've worked with a lot of e-commerce sites back when we were first getting started we implemented a full e-commerce checkout solution for them for these mobile stores where visitors could browse products, add them to a shopping cart, add their credit card or their PayPal, and completely check out completely through their mobile site. But the vast majority, 80 to 90% of their sales were coming from the phone number in the header, where people were just using the site to browse products, look at what they wanted, and then click one button to call and place an order over the phone. Some people are just like that, and rather than have a back button or have someone abandon the page, throw a phone number in there to get the most out of it. Another one is to personalize the messaging. So everyone should have access to server-side information like the visitor's location based on their IP address, and then also the server time that the site was accessed. And using this sort of information, you can put together really useful stuff. You'll see this all the time in Amazon, right? Fast and free shipping to California, or order now and get it by Wednesday. That's just basically saying, hey, this is where you are, here's what time it is, here's when we can get it to you. That's personalizing the messaging, and it works. Amazon has great sales records with this stuff. And a lot of our pros have actually used our website personalization tool Insight to take this a step further, adding triggers like device or campaign URL to really personalize the messaging on their landing pages, and it's something that can really improve your conversion rate. So definitely check it out. Another thing is to make sure when you're building your sites that if you're adding in forms, that you're using the correct HTML5 form fields. If you're going to actually make a visitor go through and fill out a form, you want the context to pull up the correct keyboard automatically, whether it's the keyboard for an email, the correct keyboard for entering a phone number. You don't want to confuse the user. You don't want to make them have to figure out how to find the @ symbol or whatever it is they're looking to do. Use the correct keyboard. So make sure you're identifying the correct form fields when you're putting that landing page together. And finally here, I think we're going to talk about load times. So you've got to remember when someone's accessing your page and they're on a mobile device, you've got to account for slow connections. According to Google, nearly half of your visitors will actually leave your mobile site if it doesn't load within 3 seconds. This load time is huge. It's very, very important. And there's actually a really interesting study from Nielsen that talked about how a load time of less than a second has been shown not to interrupt that customer's thought process. So think about that for a second. If you could actually have your responsive site load in less than a second, that person sees your ad, they click the ad, and they see your page, and they're still thinking about whatever thought that led them to tap or click on that ad. That's cool. That's something that you want, especially as an advertiser. So that's the goal. And I know here at Duda, we're working really hard to improve the load time of all of our mobile responsive sites. And just keep your ears out. We're going to have some exciting news around the beginning of the year about some major improvements we're making in this area. But it's definitely something to consider when you're putting together your mobile landing pages. So that's it. Those are my 9 tips for you guys. We're going to get into Q&A now with Patrick. Before we go over to the Q&A, I do want to leave you with, we do have some resources, so if you want to find out more about Google's bid adjustments, we've got a link to a resource at Google right there. And then to find out more about Duda and our reseller program, you can head to dudamobile.com/DudaPro. And then to get updates about when this replay will be live, we're going to be posting this webinar. I saw a few of you did ask if this is being recorded. This is being recorded. And we will post a replay to our resource center. So you can just follow us at Duda Mobile on Twitter, and we'll tweet out as soon as the replay is available, and you guys can go check it out.
Awesome. Before we get into Q&A, just one more resource to point out that wasn't in there. For those who are needing some help taking advantage of the new longer ad text, look up on the Think with Google site the Creative That Clicks study that we released. Talks through a lot of the nuances of copywriting, especially as it relates to search ads. So take a look at that for some great tips.
Excellent. We can actually add that to the deck, and then we'll send that around for folks to download. All right, guys, we're going to go through and check out your questions now. So if you do have any questions for Patrick, we're just going to be able to stick around for about 20 minutes before he's got to take off and head back to the Google campus, which is a really fun place to go, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
I went to a meeting in one of the buildings there, and it had a bowling alley in it, and it's just like,
yeah,
it's awesome.
I've spent way too much time there.
All right, guys. So go ahead and get your questions in. We're going to start looking at them now. Someone's asked, will we get this presentation to show our employees later? Just to be really clear, guys, the replay and the deck will be sent out in an email to everyone who registered for this webinar tomorrow. So you have a link to that as well as a link to download today's deck. You'll get both of those in an email tomorrow. And then, of course, you can shout out to us at Duda Mobile, and we'll let you know as soon as it's posted.
Okay. Just moving down from the top. What is auto bidding? If for someone who's never purchased an ad before, well, when you create your campaign on AdWords, you're essentially participating in an auction. So think like eBay. When you want to purchase an item, you set a bid, a maximum bid for that item. Same thing with your ad on AdWords. You're setting a bid, a maximum bid that is that you would pay to have your ad serve on Google.com. Now, auto bidding allows you to hand over the reins to Google to bid within a certain budget range and make those bid decisions for you. It's especially useful for people with who are either new to AdWords or have large campaigns with lots of different keywords that they may not necessarily have time or patience to understand all the different signals that go into a strong bid on AdWords. So our algorithms drive those bid decisions for you, and they're really effective.
That seems like a really solid way to go. Yaniv had a comment. He said, I feel like I need to study copywriting with the new ads. They're awesome, don't get me wrong, but I cover my text within the headlines already.
Yeah.
So I'd say check out that Think with Google study that Patrick mentioned a little bit earlier.
That's right. It's called Creative That Clicks.
Let's see, there's
another one here that says, I'm not clear how to let the user know the ad will go to a mobile site. So if you have, if you jump into the workflow to create a new expanded text ad, there will be a drop-down menu within that window that says mobile URLs, and that's where you can specify if it's a mobile-specific site.
Speaking of that, Matt had a question. He said, with responsive design, you do not have mobile-specific pages. Do you recommend creating mobile-specific landing pages for PPC? And really what we're talking about is going a little bit beyond your basic responsive site and going into responsive with dynamic serving, which lets you edit per device. So it's still a responsive site, but you have server-side support, which lets you differentiate that CTA and some of that content per device. So you do have a mobile version that you could control, and that's what I was going into a little bit. And a lot of our Duda pros use this, where you can actually go through and just choose a different call to action entirely on the mobile version of the responsive site. And this is really easy to set up on Duda's platform at least, and you can do it on others as well, custom coding. As Matt is saying, in our account, I don't see DBA for computer and tablet, only for mobile. What can I do?
That's a common question. So because these were just rolled out recently, just a couple of weeks ago, this is going to be a kind of slow rollout that's done in waves. So it wasn't a mass release per se. So just keep checking into your account over the next few days, and you should see it show up sooner rather than later.
Patricia says, sorry guys, this is way over my dinosaur head. I'll wait for a webinar tomorrow 101. Sorry, I did warn you guys up front though. This is going to be a little bit more of an advanced AdWords webinar. So there are some good resources available for, Patrick, what would you recommend to someone who's maybe, this is maybe a little bit over their head, where's a good place for them to go to get started to learn more about AdWords?
If you can go into the Google Help Center, we have a ton of what we call best practice guides hosted on that site, as well as Think with Google is another great site to find a lot of resources to educate yourself.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, Rabia is saying, I was not aware that you could just build a landing page in Duda and use it to launch campaigns. How is creating a landing page different from building a site? Do you have templates available, and what is the cost? That's an excellent question. So yeah, I mean, you can go ahead and launch a campaign with Google for any website that you own. I mean, it doesn't need to be any particular website. So any site that you build on Duda, you can of course launch a campaign about and drive traffic to it through Google. Whether that's your regular website or you've created a landing page specifically to sell a product or service, you can do that as well. At Duda, we do have templates that are available that are more landing page style, more that landing squeeze page style. We do have those available as well. The same price as our normal websites. You can just pick that template instead of one of the full website templates if you want. There's a couple comments about some of the slides being cut off. Sorry guys, there's a little bit of a formatting issue when we moved the presentations over to PowerPoint. We'll go ahead and fix that before sending out the deck. John is asking about mobile URLs best practice, like .mobi, etc. We'd really steer clear of that. There's really not much of a need for a mobile-specific URL anymore unless you're building a mobile-specific site. I mean, responsive is clearly Google's favorite way for you to have a mobile-friendly site, but Google actually does have three recommended methods for doing that. One is having a responsive site. One is having a dedicated mobile site that's redirected. And usually for those, you could just use an m.subdomain of the site, like m.wikipedia.com or .org, something like that. Then the third method is dynamic serving, which is what Duda does for our responsive sites. So if you do have a mobile-only site, there's no need to go ahead and purchase a .mobi domain. It's just unnecessary. Save the $12, buy some ads with it instead or something like that.
There's a question around ad extensions. So what was meant under best practices relevant extensions? By relevant extensions, I just meant kind of generically all of the different ad extensions that are available, whether it be site links or call extensions, location extensions, whatever it may be, utilizing the ones that are most relevant to the actions that you want to drive with that ad. And obviously Google determines which ones to ultimately serve, but if they do serve with, let's say, a location extension, that additional button is going to increase your real estate, the noticeability of the ad by the user, and hopefully the clickability.
Excellent. There's an interesting comment from someone. The symbol in math for that menu I was talking about earlier is absolute equivalence. That's actually the name for it. But he thinks the menu is menu stack or option stack. That's a really good comment. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a fun piece of trivia to know. Doug is asking if Duda is going to go ahead and play in the AMP space. If you guys aren't familiar with AMP, that's Google's Accelerated Mobile Pages project. So far, our focus is on building websites for small businesses. And up until this point, it's very much seemed like AMP is really geared more towards publishers. It's really got a special code set geared more towards the publishing space, and it's really not useful for small businesses in its current form. If this changes and it feels like AMP is really spreading out to be more useful for small business websites as well, then we'll definitely take a look at it. But for right now, it just doesn't really seem like it's a good fit for Duda, considering what we'd have to give up in terms of customization and functionality and features to be AMP friendly or AMP certified. So we actually did an entire webinar on this a couple months back, and there's a link to it in the resource center. So if you go to resources, click on webinars, we have a whole webinar talking about in depth what Google AMP is, what it's kind of geared for, and how it relates to Duda.
Aaron had a question. Ad text can be longer now, but would it still be feasible to keep the text characters less than the maximum to keep the ad cleaner and less cluttered? Yeah, absolutely. It's not a hard, fast rule that you have to utilize the maximum character space on every single text ad. With some, especially when it comes to brand-related searches, it's actually perhaps more effective to use kind of shorter, simple ad text or headlines. Just communicate, hey, we're tied. Come check us out. You know, if you're tied, you don't really need to communicate much more than that, or Nike. But you know, going back to the best practices, recommend experimenting with variations on your ad text, 3 to 5 in your ad group, and let them rotate and let the performance data really bear out what your users are finding most relevant or most useful when it comes to your ad text.
Leanne is asking, how do I go about managing multiple accounts in AdWords?
How to manage multiple accounts in AdWords?
Mm-hmm.
If we're talking about multiple accounts that lead to the same or for the same business, that's not possible, and that's is actually forbidden under our double serving policy. So if you have multiple businesses, it's a matter of creating multiple Google accounts and then going from there.
Another question, Alyssa is asking, would you recommend using both path fields or just one? Do you think using 2 path fields is too much clutter?
There's no science to that. You know, I believe in making it as relevant as possible to the search query. So just consider the keywords that are in your ad group. If you have really specific ad groups with just a handful of keywords, then it might make more sense to utilize both path fields to speak to that. But it really just depends on the balance that you have within your ad groups.
All right. Haley's asking, how big is this landing page idea? Is this a total must when we're revamping our website completely? Haley, no. I mean, it's not a total must if you're revamping your website. If you're using a platform like Duda, you can actually use our insight or our personalization features to turn your homepage into a landing page. Using insight and our campaign URL feature, you can differentiate the content on your homepage to your paid traffic versus the organic traffic that your site gets. So using that, you actually don't need to build a separate landing page. You can have your same homepage with your same domain, and URL with a different call to action and different content just for your paid traffic. So, I mean, there are ways around it, but if you do have a specific campaign that you're trying to make sales or conversions on, then setting up a landing page is a great idea for it. And to follow up with that, Wayne is asking if there's any reason he shouldn't use his landing page for his website if the goals for both are the same. If the goals for both are the same, then yeah, your landing page and your website are one and the same. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. If that's your goal and it serves all the purposes you need it to serve, it's up to you. You're the boss of your own website, So if you use it strictly as a landing page and as a sales conversion machine, absolutely. David's asking, with ETAs, where's the best place to put your call to action? Should it be included in the descriptive 80 characters text, or does it make sense to put it in heading 2?
That's also going to be dependent as well on how much you want to communicate in your headline. But I will say this, the headline is the most important part of the ad because it is the most prominent. There's bolding, the text size is larger, so if you feel like you can communicate enough both about your brand as well as the call to action within the headline, consider doing that. But falling back on that same best practice, test a few variations with placement and as well as ad copy, and let the users tell you directly.
Mark is asking, how are review ratings set to appear on the ad?
Review rating should show up as normal with the new expanded text ads. So I'm not aware of any changes to that extension.
Joe is asking, will Duda make it easy to add organic search formats such as H1 tags, etc., to Duda pages at some time in the future? Joe, that's a really good question. Actually, you can do this today in the Duda editor. Anytime you add a text element to your site, you can choose whether or not it's an H1, H2, H3, all the way down to H6. You can choose the heading tag for that text element on any text element on your page. We would recommend having a single H1 per page and then H2s and 3s as necessary throughout the rest of the site. But absolutely you can control that right now in the Duda 1 responsive website editor. Oh, here we go. I'm sure this is in the back of everyone's mind. Steve is asking, do you have any AdWords coupons or promos you can offer?
Unfortunately, I don't have any on me today.
Sorry, guys.
You'll consider signing up for Google Partners, and within that program, if you do qualify, you could be eligible for the Google offers within there.
Okay.
That is if you're an agency.
So Joe's asking, will Duda add the ability to export a feed for Google Shopping from a Duda site and add Google recommended microdata in the format Google can be accepted to a site? Joe, that's really interesting. I'm not quite sure exactly what that feature is. I'm trying to imagine it. But I'd love for you to write us in. Just go ahead and write me some feedback. Webinars at dudamobile.com, and I'd love to hear more about what your expectations would be around a feature like that. David's saying, Cody, how to personalize messaging. Maybe this could be its own webinar. Maybe it could be its own webinar, David. That's a great idea. That's definitely something we'll consider. Thank you for the suggestion. Ray is asking, it's my understanding that ETAs will become standard 1.1 and the current ads will no longer be shown? Yes?
No specifics yet with respect to standard text ads, but there will come a point later in the year where you will only be able to create the expanded text ads.
John's asking, does your CTR affect your quality score, and does that lower your CPC?
Yes. So if the question was around quality score affecting CPC, ultimately, yes. If you have a good performing relevant ad, we like to reward that in the auction by giving you a lower final, essentially CPC or price that you pay for your impression. That is.
That's very nice of Google to do.
Excuse me, for your click, I should say.
Yeah, your click. Wayne's asking, what's the best way to have Google review and tune up my AdWords campaign? Would this be using auto bidding or something? Or
I didn't hear the question.
What's the best way to have Google review and tune up my AdWords campaign?
You can try calling into the Google Help Center, or just look on the Google Help Center for tips and best practices to optimize your own.
Cameron is saying, Cody, can you talk about the features of Duda that can be used to create and optimize landing pages on the Duda 1 site, e.g. the header section on landing pages? Yeah, I talked a little bit about some really more of the, kind of in today's theme, more of the mobile conversion tips. But we do have landing page templates that you can use. These templates are really fantastic. We've also now added the ability to disable headers on certain pages. So rather than building a separate landing page that you have to pay separately for on Duda, you can just add a new page to your site, and then you can actually disable the header on that page so you can turn it into a custom landing page. Of course, you'd want to hide it from your main site's navigation, or more than likely, well, I mean, that's really up to you. but you can hide it from that navigation, set it up as a separate landing page on your site. You can absolutely do that now with Duda. I think you have to make sure that you have the header as a row selected. So depending on the template that you use when you set it up, you might have to convert the header into a row. If you're not sure what I mean and you are a Duda customer, just check out our help center for more information on doing that. Type in header as a row or email the support team. They'll be happy to walk you through how to do that. Let's see. Hey guys, I think a couple more questions here. Cameron is asking, Cody, can you also please talk about more ways that Insight could be used with landing pages to optimize the experience and response rates? Yeah, one other way, and I have to be sensitive about the time because we're right about the end of the hour and Patrick's got to get running. One of the ways that's really great to do with Insight is we have something called the campaign URL, and that lets you actually set up a referral tag at the end of a URL for any page on your Duda site. So if you're using that in your AdWords campaign, you're able to differentiate the content that comes to that page based on the ad and the campaign that you're running. So you can actually differentiate your CTA, the homepage content, everything based on that URL. We can even set a cookie so when traffic comes back to it that they still see that same content. So that's probably one of the best ways to do it. And you can also then combine that with triggers like time, device, location, number of visits, etc., to really customize it further. I think we have one more question here. This is from Doug. He says, with an auto bid setup, do we have the capability to bid against others only within defined geographical locations, i.e. a bar wants to capture the locals and not lose out to the global ad campaign?
Absolutely. You can, the settings to geo-target your campaigns, say a radius only around your bar, is separate from the auto bid setting. So absolutely.
And one more quick AdWords question too. Someone says, ad text can be longer now, but would it still be feasible to keep the text characters less than the maximum to keep the ad cleaner and less cluttered? Is there any evidence that users who see blocks of text for ads don't read through it and perhaps overlook it because it's too wordy?
Yeah, I think we answered that question for Aaron earlier.
Oh, did
but just to restate it for anyone who joined late, there's no science per se, but we also don't think you necessarily have to utilize the maximum character space in every text ad. Most relevant is in brand searches where you really want to just focus on the brand name and make sure that the users who already know your brand can easily find it. But it's all stuff that you should experiment with, falling back on that best practice to have multiple variations of an ad copy within ad group and let them cycle through and collect performance data and allow yourself to optimize from there.
I think we've got to actually cut it short, guys. I didn't realize we're 2 minutes away from the hour. So thank you all so much for coming. I really appreciate everyone who joined. Thank you to Patrick for coming in and driving out to our offices in Palo Alto, giving you guys a fantastic presentation full of lots of good information and taking time to answer our questions. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Cody. Thank you all.
All right, guys. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.